Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Yountville Town Council. It is Tuesday, October 20th at 6 p.m. For those of you joining us for the very first time in council chambers this evening, you'll find the agenda and the supporting documentation on the wall in the little plastic bins by the door where you came in. So help yourself to that information. The staff reports are there and all the supplemental information is there supporting the agenda tonight. We are being broadcast live on Channel 28, and this session will be rebroadcast on Friday at noon, Channel 28. And we're also streaming live on the internet. If you go to our website, www.townofyountville.com, and click on the Town Council tab, you'll find this meeting, and it'll be archived, and you can watch it at a later date on your computer as well. And one little housekeeping item while you're in council chambers this evening, we would appreciate it if you would turn off your cell phones and pagers. May we have the roll, please?
Councilmember Dutton.
Here.
Councilmember Chilton.
Here.
Councilmember Moeller.
Here.
Vice Mayor Dunbar.
Here.
Mayor Sosserman.
Here. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We did have a closed session on October, from October. Oh, there wasn't any.
We clarified that we did not have a
Closed session was not held in October. Item 7, adoption of tonight's agenda. Are there any changes or corrections to the agenda this evening, other than item 11?
Just want to clarify that item 11 was pulled at the request of the applicant.
And is continued to the November 3rd meeting.
When we get to
believe
that
so,
item,
but
I'd like you to make a motion to continue
Okay.
officially, please.
Anything else? Can I have a motion?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. That motion carries. Item 8 is public comment. Anyone wishing to address the council this evening on anything that is not on the agenda this evening? Anybody? Carl?
Yes, I'm Carl Nitka, resident of Rancherton, Napa. I've had people ask me concerns about the warning sign at the town's warning sign at the entrance of our park that's sitting on Washington Street. The complaint being that they're having problem, it's blocking traffic on Washington, traffic coming from the south. And we're concerned about a lot of the drivers on California coming into Washington are not stopping already, and it's making a real problem. If that sign could be moved, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm sorry. What sign is that, Carl?
It's
Oh, the electronic sign?
Yeah, electronic
on wheels?
sign, right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll evaluate and see if there's some issues or if there's a more appropriate. I do want to stress that the message that the electronic message boards are conveying is also about important traffic safety message, so we need to weigh both considerations.
Okay.
So staff will take a look at that and see if we can find if there's a safer, more appropriate location that will still provide for the motorist safety advisory.
Good. Yeah, any other public comment? Anything tonight that's not on tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public comment, move on to item 9, approval of the consent calendar. Are there any changes or corrections to tonight's consent calendar? If not, can I have a motion?
Move for adoption of consent calendar items A through F.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. That motion carries. Thank you. Presentations. We're going to recognize our outgoing Transportation Advisory Committee members. John Paul McCann and Peter Mader. And I believe Peter isn't here this evening, but Mr. McCann is. So if you'll join me at the podium, Mr. McCann. Our Transportation Advisory Committee is a very special group of folks that dedicate a lot of time to the town in addressing issues involving transportation, public safety, parking, walking paths, crosswalks, and other items. And Paul, you've served on the committee for your term, and in appreciation for your service to the Town of Yountville Transportation Advisory Committee, the town thanks you and awards you with this little plaque. And it is from the town, the council, and staff this day, October 20th, 2009.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And we have the same little plaque for Mr. Mader. Wish he could be here tonight, but we'll get it to him. Next item is our quarterly report from CAL FIRE. Battalion Chief Mike Parks.
To you, Mayor, and the rest of the council. For the third quarter of 2009, your station at Yountville responded to 212 total calls, 92 medicals, 12 public assists, 23 vehicle accidents, 2 vehicle fires, 46 alarm soundings, 10 reported structure fires, 14 vegetation fires, 5 miscellaneous, 2 hazardous materials calls, and 6 tree power line type calls. 56 of those calls are actually in the town, 34 at the Veterans Home, 117 in the unincorporated county areas, and 5 automatic or mutual aid to the city of Napa. Again, pretty standard, pretty on par with our normal routine. As far as the rest of the quarter, actually very quiet, not a whole lot to report. Our major events, or what we're calling our major events, are even pretty minor. So nothing really significant on that end. For our special events, we were happy to be guests at the Focus Barbecue as opposed to the host as usual. That was a nice change for the crew. We helped out the Cope family dinner and Hands Across the Valley. We also participated in the Fill the Boot, which is a muscular dystrophy. It's a benefit for Muscular Dystrophy Association and the Jerry's Kids Foundation. It's the Fill the Boot concept. I don't know where it originated, but it's done by fire departments all across the country. This is the first time that I can recall that the Napa area or CAL FIRE has participated. So we had positions set up all over the county. The station in town was a high mark at $44,500 we picked up. The county itself raised about $12,000, and then the area that this particular unit for CAL FIRE serves was able to bring in about $40,000. So it was high enough to where we were one of the top generating areas of the state, or fire departments in the state. So one of the members that organized it was able to make that presentation at the telethon on TV with Jerry Lewis. So we're actually pretty proud of how well it went for our first venture. And of course, a lot of that thanks goes to the public who pitched in. Our really some minor trainings, nothing unusual. Last couple things I'd like to mention is October 4th through 10th is Fire Prevention Week, which is past, obviously, but we consider October Fire Prevention Month, and you'll see that throughout the state. So just a reminder to the public to review their exit plans, make sure their address is visible and visible for us to see from the roadway, remind the family where their extinguisher locations are and they're charged. And then don't hesitate to call us if your smoke detector batteries need changing or you need one installed. We're more than happy to take care of that for you. The big reminder is when you change your clock, you change your smoke detector battery. If that's not possible for you, don't hesitate to call the station. We'll be happy to come out and take care of it. Last item is we will be ramping up for the toy drive, which is coming up again. Can't believe it. We're talking Christmas already, but it's about that time, so you'll start to see the bins and solicitations coming up throughout the town probably within the next month or so. So,
Great.
any questions?
Any questions for Chief Park? Thank you.
Mike,
Yes.
I just want to,
sorry.
I'm sorry, I want to commend you on not putting the chili cook-off in there, where I know you humiliated the sheriff's department and many other departments out there, including my team, but good for you for being honest.
Next quarter, I think. Next quarter.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's because it's on next quarter. Actually, and you never gloat until they're done talking. So he's still got last call. So.
Okay, thank you. Uh-oh. Okay, we have the Sheriff's Department quarterly report coming up.
I'm surprised Mike didn't bring us the trophy tonight because they admitted they stocked their chips and they lost. And they were going to turn the trophy over to us, but it didn't happen. That was a lot of fun. I'm glad we participated in it this year. First time we've done that. And having a booth at the parade and at the fairground, at the picnic area was real good too for us, getting more in touch with the county. Like Cal Fire, we don't have a lot to report this quarter. It was kind of a quiet quarter. Calls for service basically stayed around the same. There was only a slight change. We went down a couple of calls. Arrests went up 3 times, went from 5 to 15 this quarter, and that's basically because we have more people in town. Most of them related to DUIs and to just people drinking a little too much and not being able to care for themselves. So we helped them along on that one. As you all know, we moved into the office this week, so we'll be a much higher visibility in town now. We've already had lots of people stop by just to say hello, just between Friday and today. People knocking on the door and want to come in and look at the office and just get acquainted to the whole thing being in town. So I think that's going to work out really well for both the Sheriff's Department and the town of Yountville. I went through significant cases through the last quarter. There was nothing outstanding to report. None of our deputies got run over or anything like that, so it was kind of a good quarter for us. And it really was a nice, quiet quarter. I hope I'm not jinxing myself by saying that, but I've talked to a lot of the businesses and the hotels and restaurants. Their numbers are up, especially for this going into this quarter. They're already saying how they're booked through December for banquets and things of that nature in the hotels. So I think it's going to be a good quarter coming up with the Festival of Lights and everything else. And we'll be right in the middle of town to celebrate it all, so it'll be nice.
All right. Any questions for Sergeant Belmer?
If I may.
John?
I do have just one. I'm kind of cheating because it's not part of the quarterly report. It has more to do with you moving into the new location. You mentioned that we should expect to see not only our own deputies, but more deputies from around the valley coming through town, and I thought maybe that it would be helpful that you mention that tonight, just so people realize if they see some strange faces or additional vehicles, not to be alarmed, but to be welcoming.
I think last quarter I mentioned that a lot of the deputies that work Beat 3 and Beat 4 in the surrounding area don't usually come into town to write the reports or take breaks and things of that nature because the fire department, our office in the fire department is right next to their sleeping quarters. And the firemen have to sleep at night because they need their beauty sleep. So, so we don't like to interrupt them. They get a little annoyed in the morning. When I come in the morning, they're all grumpy because somebody the night before woke them up when they had to use the bathroom or something. So, yeah. So now that we're in town, that's all. We have our own office. It's a 24/7 deal. Guys can come in and use the break room. There's twice as many computers as we had before, so they can write the reports in there. I've kind of talked to all the guys that work Beat 3 and 4 and asked them, when they come into town, don't just hit the office and leave. Hit the back streets, do a little patrol for me. And they're starting to log that for me, so I'll be able to tell how much they're in town. But I think it's going to be a lot more presence for the Sheriff's Department. They've already started doing a lot more traffic. I think next quarter's stats will probably be up a lot as far as traffic stops go, because both of the Beat 3 deputies that just started this rotation are notorious traffic enforcement officers. So They'll be stopping. I kind of said, it's a little different up here. You might want to, the first time, give that warning until you know who you're dealing with, and then from there, start banging them. So that's why they like the department and don't like us. They don't give tickets.
Good. Bill?
I had a question, just a discussion somebody asked the other day, and I noticed Sharon was here, so she might have a comment on it too, but it came up about the Yountville Crossroad, and for a long time there, that was the big issue, and the speed and everything. Have you patrolled out there to notice anything, or has that, the little light or the signal there that tells your speed done anything, or is it still?
I think it
what
makes
was?
people more aware, because I have no coming back myself. I'll see it flash and realize I'm going faster than I should be going. It's more of a, it'll tell people, it'll give them a visual idea that they might be going too fast. So I think that helps. I've sat out there on numerous occasions. Of course, when I sit out there, everybody drives perfectly. It's like when I sit at a stop sign, they all seem to stop for it. But I think anytime you have a rural area with stop signs or straightaways like that, it's almost impossible to make everybody obey that rule. People just tend to drive a little faster on straightaways like that. But I definitely think the town's, speed limit sign out there has definitely slowed a lot of people down and made them realize they are going a little faster than they should be going.
Thank you.
Good. Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 11, public hearing development agreement Vineyard Oaks subdivision. This is the item that I believe that has been continued. Can I get a motion to
November 3rd.
continue to November 3rd?
Before that motion, I would just want to go on record that I would need to recuse myself from that item. So I won't be casting a vote on the continuance.
Okay.
So I'll move to recontinue the public hearing for the development agreement with Vineyard Oaks subdivision until November the 3rd, 2009.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. And one abstention, the vice mayor. Item 12, Tacos Garcia, 90-day use permit review. Do we have a staff report?
Mayor, due to state regulations on business interests, I am going to recuse myself from this discussion and listen from the audience.
All righty. Let the record show that Councilmember Chilton is going to step down from this item. May we have a staff report, please?
The item before you is a 90-day review of the use permit for Tacos Garcia, and the purpose of which is to evaluate the impacts of that use, both on-site and to nearby properties. Staff has been maintaining a log of conflicts and issues as well as support of the project, and these are noted in the staff report. We received several calls regarding the parking lot and some of the circulation issues and constraints that exist. The Sheriff's Department was called on one occasion regarding an altercation over a private stall and the public use of that stall. There was a letter submitted from an adjacent neighbor noting visual impacts and smells at her property. There was a photo in the Yountville Sun that appears to show outdoor consumption of alcohol. And since publishing the staff report, staff has received a telephone call and an email from two nearby neighbors noting some of the impacts, a telephone call from a resident in support of the project. Staff heard from the property owner who has no issues with the taco truck, and also heard from the taco truck operator who submitted an opinion survey with positive feedback. And as he entered the council chambers tonight, he submitted a few more sheets, and that brings the names on that survey to about 275 people. The impacts generally fall into three categories, the first of which is site circulation impacts and lack of parking management. And as the truck was approved, it was conditioned to locate along the south property line, and this was to keep the commercial use closer to the Washington Street commercial uses and distant from the sensitive residential uses on the east property line. But this created some conflicts in the driveway, and the truck has since been moved to the northeast corner. There are other factors that contribute to the circulation conflicts, one being that it's a gravel lot that's unpaved and unstriped, which is leading to some confusion. Another is the reserved parking stall that I mentioned at the rear of Poncha's parking lot, and it's not adequately marked to give drivers notice that that's not a public stall. And there's no parking management plan for the shared uses of Poncha's and Tacos Garcia of that site. Staff thinks some of these issues can be addressed by adequately signing that stall at the rear door as private and by clearly delineating the parking stalls on the site. And because the lot is a gravel lot, it's somewhat limited in what can be done, but we are suggesting that there be cloth strips that are tacked down, and this creates somewhat of a maintenance issue over time, but that it could address some of those needs. Paving, striping, and installing drainage on the lot is probably cost prohibitive to this applicant, and they might not elect to make those changes and not use the site. Another category of impacts are the visual, odor, and noise impacts that are raised by some nearby and adjacent neighbors, notably the neighbor to the north property line. And the telephone call that noted that the truck motor idles constantly, and staff has learned that this generally occurs in the summer when the air conditioning in the truck is running. So there is a truck idling at the property line. These impacts are heightened because of the location on the east property line, which is adjacent to private backyards of several residences. One way to solve this impact would be to move the truck back along the south property line, as long as some of the parking lot and circulation improvements are made to solve some of those issues. It does, however, raise the issue of whether this is the best property in town for this use. The potential outdoor consumption of alcohol was raised in the reported photo in the Sun. And if there is outdoor consumption of alcohol, that would be a violation of either or both the Poncha's liquor license or the Tacos Garcia use permit. And even though we've just had this one report of drinking on the site, there may be an inherent conflict of this shared use where one is an alcohol use and the other is an outdoor use. So this may raise another issue to maybe consider a different location. And staff raised a few of these in the staff report because of the impacts on adjacent uses, and also because the truck serves a need that's not otherwise met in town, which is indicated by the letters of support this applicant submitted. We raised the different private property options, town property options, including the town's parks, and there are several issues that apply to all of these. One is parking and whether commercial lots have a parking stall that they can give to this truck to park, and generally properties are developed with the minimum number of stalls, so they don't often have that. Proximity to residences is one of the bigger issues, and any of the commercial properties on the east side of Washington generally back up to residential, as does the community center. The town's parks are interspersed through residential areas, really except for the one at the north and south ends of town, and those two have a residential in close proximity, but there may be certain locations on those that might work. Restroom availability is a consideration because while it's an amenity to a customer, it's a requirement for the Department of Health for the employees. So that needs to be provided. And the public property options raise the issue of whether it's appropriate for a for-profit use. And if the council wanted to pursue this, staff would have to do some research into the possible ordinances that could regulate these uses. So the issue is up for your discussion tonight.
Thank you. Does council have questions for staff at this point? Questions? Before the council takes up the discussion on this matter, I would like to open it up for public comment. I would like to note that we have received your petition, or somebody's petition, Taco Garcia's petition, and signed by a number of folks, and we've reviewed the additional signatures. We've also received emails from several citizens, most of them in support of the taco truck, one that is opposed to it, and then a couple with just some suggestions for change. So, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this matter this evening?
Hello, my name is Jennifer Costa. It's the first time I've ever been here, so I don't know if I'm doing it right. I'm usually the neighbor that likes to not cause waves or anything like that. I do live at the residence of 6767 Jefferson Street, which is the easement that backs up to Ponch's parking lot. So I am one of the neighbors, and so far all I've heard is, yes, there are some neighbors in support, but then you hear the reasons why the people are against it. So I would like to take this time to go just a couple of the issues that would pertain to me being the neighbor. One of them being visual. And unfortunately, I have not been able to go to work for the last couple of months, so I've been working out of my home. So for the last couple of months, I have been pretty much there every day while the taco truck is there. I've never heard him drive in. I've never heard him drive out. Though I do hear every morning at 5:30 in the morning the hot air balloons drive in and out. So I'm just trying to, I'm not saying the hot air balloons shouldn't be there. I'm just justifying where the noise is. So I don't hear them. As far as the smell and the aroma, I don't smell it every day. Sometimes if the wind is right, I do smell it. It is a wonderful aroma. But it's not just the taco truck. When Gordon's was there, they had a wonderful aroma that we smelled every day. So I guess it just depends on whether you like that smell of food, but it's just a smell of food, and it's a nice aroma. As far as noise, I don't really hear anything. In fact, if I'm up late at night at 3 in the morning, I might hear some employees from Ponch's dumping glass, but that's all I hear. So I am in favor of the taco truck. I think that we do need, if I want to go out to dinner in Yountville, I have many, many restaurants to choose from. But if I don't feel like cooking and I want a nice, good meal that's reasonable, we need something like that, and this truck does provide it. So I'm here also if there's any questions about neighbors bringing up issues about something else. I can also, being a neighbor, I can answer some questions. Okay?
Good, thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Jennifer, could I ask you, no, it's okay. Just the residence is just due west of you then now. That is, the residence is now vacant?
Okay, I actually am there. If you drive up the easement,
Right.
Eleanor used to live on the street, and then I live, and then
Right.
there's another residence that actually backs up to Ponch's.
Correct.
That residence there is vacant. There's nobody there. So in that respect, I am the closest one at this moment in time to the taco truck from the east side.
Right. Okay.
Okay? Any other questions?
No, good, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Anyone else?
Hi, again, I'm Carl Nitka, and from Rancho de Napa. And a lot of residents, feel strongly that we need to have a choice of places to go to keep our tax dollars in town. And that too many people are leaving town to go eat elsewhere. And we enjoy eating out in Yountville at the fine restaurants that we do have in town. But this taco truck has got very affordable meals that we can all afford to go to. There's a lot of people on fixed income that don't have a chance to go eat out, and this taco truck gives them that chance. We appreciate that. And we have a lot of seniors and veterans that really enjoy this taco truck, besides the rest of us residents that we enjoy it. And I notice we have an awful lot of local workers that are enjoying this taco truck. And so I don't want to lose this taco truck with the good meals. And I encourage a vote to keep this taco truck in town, somewhere in town. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Any question?
Anybody have a question for Carl?
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, good evening. My name is Jeff Holmes, and I'm with Christina White, and our residence is on the north side of Pontius parking lot, and Christina was the one who wrote the letter in. And ever since we lost compadres, I agree that there is a lack of affordable meals here, restaurants, as we all know. And so we're not against the taco truck. It's that it's in the residential. It's literally in our backyard. We were looking at it tonight before we came over here from the living room, and we see the top of the truck, the lights, the vents, the plume of oil smoke, and it comes right inside the house. And it's a two-story. We leave the French doors open, and we get the north breeze. And so, again, we're not against the taco truck here, but, and I can certainly understand why Pontius would like to have it, is because it gives Mexican restaurant with beer and pool and all that. So we see the compliment that for Pontius has, but when Christina bought the house, she bought it with a disclosure of Pontius, not a taco wagon as well, back in 2000. So we think, and we went over there and we've eaten there, and nice guys in the truck and all that. But I think to find an alternative place that also has bathroom facilities, such as the park, benches, things like that, and it does. It's the dust that comes in there, because not just Pontius parking, but people that drive in there, and the kind of the mess that all happens in there as they're trying to turn around and back up, and the dust. Thank goodness with the rain, it's keeping the dust down a little bit. But and then we hear the yelling of people, "Hey, move your car over here," and that kind of thing, you know. But anyway, so again, we're not against the taco truck in general, just the location of it. It's really, it's a really beautiful home, and to come home, and when they first fire up the oils, that's the big part. It doesn't even quite smell like a burrito yet, you know, and so that's it. We would just like it relocated from that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else?
No, so I won't lose my place. Steve Combs, where do I live? 1867 Heritage Way. I've been down to the taco truck 4 times. First couple of times, actually, out of curiosity, to see what was going on. Actually, what you would call sort of late lunch, 1:45, 1:45, that time frame. So there have never been a lot of people there. The most orders in front of me have been 4. The fewest have been 2, so it hasn't been Grand Central Station. It's been almost eerily quiet every time I've been there. It's just when I've been there. The people who are being served, for the most part, are people who work in town. There's a nice lady who works across the street who comes over. She told me it's the only place she had time to get lunch. It's always seemed to me to be very orderly and unobtrusive. We had a couple of guys working underneath our house for 8 hours one day, if you can believe a job like that. When they found out that there was a taco truck in town, their comment was, "Good, we don't have to drive to Napa," which is kind of nice to keep everything here in town. Now, having said all of this, I really appreciate Ms. White and the other folks who live right by, the Johnsons, who voiced their concerns. As someone who sits on a porch and looks over vineyards with the knowledge that one of these days I'm going to be looking at a barn, I can really appreciate how somebody's business can impact someone's home ownership.
I wish I could stand up here and offer a solution. I think overall there's a real good in this town. I have not heard anyone make a negative comment other than those who live directly around the two folks I mentioned here. So I think overall it's good for the town. But then we can't overlook the needs of the neighbors either. And ultimately, that's why you folks are getting the big bucks. You're going to make the decision. Good luck.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else?
I just wanted to add one small thing. And
could you state your name for the record, please?
I'm sorry, I'm Christina White. I'm the neighbor that has the two-story house right behind Ponchas. And I don't know if you've noticed, but my upstairs floor is mostly all glass. And I know that sort of exposes me to that parking lot. And I have chosen not to cover those windows because they're beautiful windows and it's really a beautiful view. And I love the light, and that's part of why I bought the house. But now, I often, as I walk through my mezzanine past those windows, do see a line of 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people, and they so often are just sort of waiting for their dinner to be served, and they're just staring at my windows. And it just feels very like I'm being invaded, actually. A lot of people, just because they're just waiting there to be served, they have the time to just kind of hang out. And most people that come in and out of Ponchas just go right into Ponchas and out, and they don't stand there and look in my windows. But now that seems to be the fact, so it's pretty disturbing. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else?
Donna Hine, 6424 Washington Street, Napa. I'm thinking of where I used to live sometimes.
Donna, could you pull the mic down so we can hear you?
Yes, thank you. I've listened to the comments this evening, both pro and, of course, the family who are directly affected. I can understand your view being blocked. I've experienced that and am experiencing it. I don't have the issue of cooking except my own, and I rather like my cooking smells, and I've had people tell me that they enjoy them also. I have noticed in the staff report recommendations for replacing or moving the food vehicle. I would love it to be down at my end of town, next to the bocce ball park, across the street from the Yountville Inn. I think it would be a perfect location. And we have that space there where right now the construction people are parking. We've looked at it for other uses, but I certainly think that it's a location to consider. There are the restroom facilities there also. And with the Yountville trolley, it's certainly easy for people to go back and forth on the trolley to that location. I don't think that there should be an objection for that location because it still keeps it in town and keeps the people who want it, which I include myself in as one of those people. I have enjoyed every item I've eaten there, and the gentleman is always polite. I, too, have been there. I think the most the people that have been there when I've been there are 4. And I am not somebody who looks up. I look around. So I hadn't noticed people looking in windows. I can appreciate the concern, but I would like you to consider our end of town. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Public comment. Tacos Garcia. Does it stay? Does it go? Do we move it? Anybody? What do you think? Yes, sir.
I just have one more comment to make. I'm sorry.
Come on.
I'm sorry. Real quick. I I just want to say that it seems like it's only the people who have a problem that live next door are impacted by it. I, however, am impacted by it because I am a neighbor. So I want you guys to understand that. It's not just, oh, we don't like it, we're impacted. I like it, I'm impacted with it. You know, when I bought my house in 2000 as well, and that house between us was not there. So Ponchas was, I used to walk across the field if I wanted to go to Ponchas. The balloon people are there. You know, I mean, it's not where we are, where it is right now. It's not like it was this. That's how the town was. It's how the town has always been like that. And I don't know about your view to the hills because I'm pretty sure that my walnut tree blocks that. So anyway, I just want to let you know that I am impacted too, and I am for it.
Okay. Anyone else?
I have one last comment, and I should have mentioned it earlier. We have this beautiful trolley in town that more people should use to go for a free ride to the taco truck or wherever in town. I encourage people to use the trolley and to get tacos or whatever, keeping it on the subject. Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. Okay, anybody else? All righty, I'm going to close the public comment. That means no more public comment. Bring it back to council for discussion and or a possible solution. Councilmember Mueller?
See, I've got some notes here. Let me go through these. I read the staff report and the emails that were both pro and con. Thank you, everybody, for coming and expressing your opinion tonight. It's the best way for us to get our information. And I was very impressed by the overwhelming positive comments collected by the petition. I think the last count was 270. I was struck by the pleas that have been made to us, the local government, to keep the taco truck. In addition to the pleas, I've been struck by the numerous repetitive positive comments that have been stated in the petition. I made notes earlier, over and over. I read things like best thing for Yountville, good for our community, Taco Garcia, good for locals, good for local employees for lunch. I was also struck by the positive comments from the numerous business neighbors, folks from the CIA, our firemen, I'm not sure if they're still here, Napa Styles, Domaine Chandon, Bellagio, Dominus Estates, Hotel Luca, and our own Vice Mayor Dunbar. So as part of this town local government, I believe it's important that we fulfill this unmet need of the affordable lunch and dinner options. I think our local government really needs to work in a positive way without overburdening restrictions to help these local serving businesses that are positive for and absolutely embraced by our community. I think developing and maintaining these positive relationships really helps all of us. I really don't support micromanagement of the location in the parking lot, whether we move it 2 feet south or a foot and a half west. I think that over time, Steve has helped move it to its current location with Taco Garcia and the people representing Ponchas, and I think it's worked out pretty well. He's advised them to put the cones up. They've done that. I think things have worked out pretty well. I've been there numerous times and, seen for myself that it really does seem to work. I'm also unwilling to single out this business for parking issues when I'm not dealing or enforcing parking issues for some of our other long-standing restaurants and hotels in town. So I don't think I can really just talk about this one. It's a bigger scope that needs to be dealt with. I'd also like to really thank Ponchas, the owner of Ponchas, who is providing this opportunity to the town and the residents for no rent. he's not making any money at all on this. And also Ponch's designee, Renee Solis, who's really helped kind of put all this together and help foster everything. And to Taco Garcia for bringing this business to Yountville. I support the approval of the taco truck without any additional conditions for approval.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Dutton, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think what, excuse me, what Councilperson Moeller said is exactly true. I feel much the same way, obviously, from the comments that we've gotten on the positive side. Fantastic. I think the incidences that have come up, I can't believe that's any really more than happen in normal businesses. A little parking scuffle here or there, might even be less. As far as the alcohol consumption, I think that's something that, Ponch's has to be aware of. I mean, that's the same thing that Ranch Market, when they had the little issue there with, people purchasing beer and then drinking in the gazebo. It can't be done. So I think that's up to them to really try to police that, because they're the one that's going to be, I believe, on the hook with the ABC or whoever monitors that type of thing. As far, I'm sure in the parking issue with the one little private thing, again, that's something I'll have to work out with the person. As far as the location of the truck, yeah, I've been down there, 4 or 5 times. First 2 times it was in the original location, then it was moved. I don't know what impact it has. Obviously, when it moved, it was much closer to the residents that were concerned. I don't know whether moving it back is going to make any difference or not. I really don't know. I would have to think internally with the parking situation, they know probably what's a better spot. But if it could be moved back to the original location without disturbing or having the parking, not a problem, that's about the best you can do as far as to pacify, I think, the local residents. That's moving as far away as you can get it from that particular issue. So that could possibly be looked at. I don't think as far as moving it anywhere else in town, I mean, you're just going to, the same issue is going to pop up somewhere else, if you do it. So it appears to be fine there. Everybody seems happy with it. To be honest with you, I've never heard, other than the local, the people that are close by, their concerns that. But for the most part, it's probably been an overwhelmingly popular business. So that's my feelings on that particular one.
Thank you for your comments. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Well, I'd just like to start off with saying that this is exactly what should be happening with this process, that we could not foresee the positive or the negative impacts on this business without giving it a trial. And had we tried to speculate, we may have made an incorrect assumption back when we initially approved this. So I think this process is working out exactly as it's supposed to. I'll just mention that first of all. And I appreciate all the residents that were willing to speak either with concerns or in support of the impacts. Through all of the comments that I've heard either personally or in the staff report, the emails we received, as far as I can tell, there's only one individual who's actually been opposed to the business itself and had negative comments about the impact of the business on the community. All of the other comments have been, it's been a great addition to the community, but the location might be a problem. And clearly we've heard that from some of the residents tonight. And I agree with some of the public comment that we heard testimony to earlier, that this is a great thing not only for our residents, but for those that can't necessarily afford some of the other dining opportunities in town, and also for some of the local employees and the occasional traveler that, we heard from the very beginning when this business was coming before us, that some people look specifically for that type of business when they go to a small community, because it's really the authentic experience of that area. So all in all, I continue to support the business. My concern is the location, and I do think we have some viable options to look at now that we know what the issues are. I do remember being told this brand-new truck was going to have like the quietest generator that you could have in a vending, mobile vending machine or a vehicle. It still makes noise. And there's no question, as was testimony tonight, the aromas, some people love them, some people don't, regardless of the cuisine. So what I was looking at as I was reviewing this is what are our options for other locations. And certainly I think all of us have probably seen a public location being used, Napa certainly, numerous locations where there are mobile vending machines parked on public streets. And I think we have that opportunity here in town. As I almost word for word, Ms. Hines' comments about the south end of town, that was going to be my number one recommendation. The gravel parking lot to the south of the bocce courts, we have talked about it as a dog park location, as a parking lot. To me, that could be the ideal location because it doesn't have direct residential impact. Yes, there are going to be some affordable housing units going in across the street, but frankly, that might be an additional business opportunity more than it is a negative impact. I think it's the north end of town also by the cemetery at the north end of Veterans Park is another, I think, viable opportunity. However, we lose some very, I think, valuable parking spaces there as we are building up the play area for the kids. We're trying to encourage families to go there. To take away 6 or 8 parking spaces for a vehicle and then adding to the traffic flow to that area, I think might be a bad idea. So I would support trying a relocation down to the south end of town. I realize at the moment, and for the next several weeks potentially, we have a conflict with the construction that's going on down there. So I think staff would need to work with the business owner to figure out a precise location for that. I could even see it as an opportunity right on Washington Street, right on the curbside. You do have tables at either end of the park that can be used. You do have restroom facilities that are public restroom facilities. It's, I think, primarily a underutilized parking area. So I think it basically eliminates all of the negative impacts that we've been hearing tonight. Whether the business owner is open to that idea, I'm not sure how the Ponch's folks feel about that idea. If it takes away what's been a positive impact on their business, I don't know. But I think our role is more to deal with the impacts on the community than it is on the specific partnered business. So I would welcome an evaluation of, or even a temporary relocation of the vehicle somewhere down at the south end of town. I also realize town would need to do some research in terms of what legal issues we might have, but certainly other communities have dealt with those legal issues, so it couldn't be insurmountable. I don't know if, hearing the other comments from the other council members to date, whether that would be an option to consider, but that's something I'd like to throw out there.
Thank you. I've been a frequent patron of the taco truck. I love the food. It's great. It's affordable. It's very convenient. I certainly don't want to see it go. But I think we do have to respect the rights of our neighbors, and the resolution we approved back in May stated that it would be located toward the front of the property, closer to Washington Street. I think we need to give that another shot before we force them to move from the Ponch's location. It might work. I think that with town, they could work, the truck owners could work and Ponch's could work with town staff to come up with some sort of parking plan in that space that would accommodate everyone's needs. So for starters, I would like to say, and as far as the other issues, the potential for alcohol consumption, the odor impact, but the impact on private property is real. And I have been there when the generator's running, and I have been there when it smells great, as far as I'm concerned. But if I just put myself in the position of the property owners directly behind it, and if it were my house and I was trying to enjoy my outdoors, I might be a little bit put off by the constant sound of the drone of the generator, and perhaps from time to time the odor. But like the other resident, Jennifer, I probably wouldn't have a problem with that. So I can understand and appreciate their concerns. Given the fact that we did approve it, and I'm certainly willing to continue it under the existing use permit, I would suggest that they conform to those conditions under that use permit, move the truck back to Washington Street. If it's not feasible, if we can't work out access and a workable parking arrangement with Ponch's, then I would be amenable to relocating it somewhere else in town. But for starters, I'm comfortable with leaving it there. I would like to see it moved from the back of the property up to where we originally indicated that it should go. And I'm sure everyone will work something out. So those are my thoughts. If the town has any comments or suggestions before we move forward.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. Just a few things. Staff has done some preliminary research in anticipation of what public property utilization option could look like, and there are a number of different approaches. But what I would tell you right now is we don't have any of those in place.
Right.
The council would need to adopt an ordinance. We would need to look at selection criteria because could be, there needs to be a regulation control limits. But it is doable, as Vice Mayor Dunbar questioned. If that is something the council was interested, there's certainly a number of places to look at, and it could be customized. So staff has done some preliminary research, and certainly we can do more if that option. I think, the question of looking at the original location and working with Ponch's is certainly something staff's very agreeable, because, like minds want this all to be successful. And I think that may be a very reasonable step before taking another course of action, and sitting back out there and looking at how do we work on that, and maybe it requires a few more traffic cones or something that we need to do to help provide that ingress egress, because I do agree with the Ponch's operations that they need to make sure that is a safe ingress egress for their patrons as well as for the patrons of the taco truck. It may be that location provides enough visual blockage and break from what the adjacent property owners. We don't know that because we really haven't spent any time there. So, that may be the most prudent course of action, and then to come back and reevaluate this at a later date. And then certainly during that evaluation process, staff could be working on what a draft public option might look like should the relocation not work to the satisfaction of the Ponch's management. That would probably be what I think staff would recommend, giving the input that we're hearing from the council.
Okay. Have we looked at the access to the parking lot with the truck in its originally approved location? Does it create a safety hazard? Do we know?
Well, it seems as if it's wide enough to accommodate both. Just looked at really generally in that way.
Yeah, because I know there's typically parking along the side of the building there, so if we just take that parking away, there would be plenty of room for access, and I think we should give that a shot before we decide to move them off the property.
It's a wider driveway than most standard driveways in town.
Yeah. Is council comfortable with that option, or?
No, if I may make a comment, since we're still debating it
Sure.
with council and the public comment's already over, but what I wanted to also mention, I should have mentioned in my comments before, is we also need to remember the impact that we're about to start to feel with Hotel Luca coming online, and in the medium future, a new restaurant right next door. So there's going to be a heavier traffic flow in that area already. My concern is also additional pedestrian jaywalking to and from the hotel potentially. I'm concerned about the location. Like I said, all of the negative comments that have been brought up have to do with impacts in that specific location. Moving it to the south fence where we originally proposed it, I think, helps mitigate to a degree some of those concerns, but I think we heard of traffic problems and pedestrian safety issues when it was first in that location, so I don't see how that's going to be mitigated. I don't know that if I'm a property owner there, removing half of my parking spaces next to my building is a suitable option either. So I would just hesitate for us to be dictating that as our solution.
Well, Mayor, I would, I think you should give it a try. I assume we'd have this on another 90-day review. The moving it off of the property, and I think you bring up the issues you'll have to, look into. My major concern was there just being shown, you're showing preference to a business that you're not showing to others, and that would be my only major concern if you put it back, on public property. You'd have to look at that. I realize that it's been done in other areas. We've never done it here. I would prefer, personally, that they could get it worked out to the satisfaction of everybody up at that location. But, if it can't be worked out, then we'll have to work out something somewhere because it's obviously that people want it.
And I could support, as Councilmember Dutton just mentioned, if we establish a 60 or 90-day review period and relocate the vehicle to the south end as originally proposed and see if that mitigates the impacts, because the majority of the impacts do appear to be immediately to the east and north of the rear part of the parking lot. If it creates new problems, then I think we do have to potentially address that.
All right, I agree.
I know we have public hearing is closed, but I assume, or maybe Sandra, you've worked with the people from Ponchas, and hopefully they're amenable to trying to work something out like that and go from there. I know we haven't heard from them personally, but maybe that's something that they would be willing to look at also.
They seem very interested in making it work on that property.
No, okay, well,
Good.
where there's a will, there's a way.
And I suggest that we give them that opportunity to try and work within the parameters of the original resolution and their original conditions of approval, and we will bring it back for review shortly after that. But in the meantime, I would like to see it moved away from the east property line. Is council comfortable with that?
If I could just ask either attorney or staff, if that means approving this use permit as written, or do we need to add in then an additional 90-day review period, if that's what staff would be recommending?
Well, the first answer to your question is if you want to bring it back in 90 days, you'll need to add that. Otherwise, the use permit, as I understand it, and perhaps the planning director can clarify, it would run because it has an initial 90-day review, and it does not have an automatic every 90-day review. So
Right.
if the council wanted an additional 90-day review, we would need to clarify that.
We've already made them endure a 90-day review. I'm not familiar that we do that with other restaurants and hotels and businesses that, in our tasting rooms that open. I think they've kind of been through that. I'm willing for staff, especially as Sandra said, if she's already talked to Ponchas and they're willing to work with something on the parking lot, to let them work it out, to make somebody go through yet another 90-day review process. I think that's too burdensome for me.
Well, basically what we're trying to do is approve the business as per the conditions of approval on their initial use permit, and so that hasn't taken place yet. So what has happened is it's been modified, moved to the east property line, and that's why they're here before us under review. Had there been no complaints, they wouldn't be here. So I think the business needs to comply with these conditions of approval, and the Ponchas can work with Tacos Garcia, and they can work out a solution. But I think definitely one of the conditions is it does need to be moved to the south property line.
I see no burden whatsoever on the businesses, either Ponchas or the taco truck, in just having a review. There's no obligation for either business to do anything other than operate their business, and it's up to town staff to evaluate and receive any kind of feedback.
Just one clarification the town attorney's provided for me, that this is a review and provide direction, and if we were to add a 90-day additional review, we would need to amend their use permit, and she says we would need to have a public hearing notice for that. So just a clarification. And
I don't think we need an additional review if it doesn't work out and there are major safety concerns or safety issues involved, then we'll have to reconsider it in its entirety.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you stay with the
Right.
approval of the original conditions, then we're okay, because that would allow staff to work with it in the original location that was proposed. But doing so would not be there would not be a trigger for an additional 90-day, if I understand your
Correct.
concern.
Right, and you can direct staff to work with the applicant on meeting the conditions as they've been written, and that if the situation is monitored and it looks like the use permit should be amended either as to those conditions in particular, or that it should be set again for a 90-day review, then staff can bring it back at a regular public hearing to amend the use permit, instead of now directing them to have that for the 90 days.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Dutton?
I'm fine with that.
I just have another question for the town attorney. In the staff report, staff recommended a condition of approval being added regarding parking management plan. So you're saying that that recommendation would also require a public hearing on the use amendment?
If you were to consider adoption of a resolution to actually amend their permit, then that should occur at a notice of public hearing, which this was not. This was a discussion on the 90-day review period. So that public hearing could be scheduled to amend the permit if that's what you wanted, if even, for example, an actual parking plan had been brought forward by staff or the applicant. But at this point, it hasn't been, and if you wanted it, I would suggest that you have another public hearing on that.
I'm just not clear on what happens if we say follow the conditions as stated, meaning parking on the south closer to Washington Street, and that creates a different set of conflicts that we want to address. We then don't have any plan to address those.
I don't necessarily, I think what that would mean is, as the attorney was alluding to, we would bring back a report and say, we found these issues, we need to work on it, and we would do that. And I do want to point out that for some of the audience, when they're looking at it, what we're really looking at is, if there was an amendment, it's a two-step process, and the first part of the process is to get public input and feedback as to what the issues were, and then the council would further respond at a follow-up meeting with whatever appropriate action. So for those of you that may be in the audience or are watching from home as to why there's a little confusion on those two, just a clarification so that, if there was feedback, the council can't preordain what that feedback or action ideas might be, and that's why there would be a second public hearing. But if you just say we want to stay with the original conditions, then the council needs to take no action other than to provide that direction to staff tonight.
I'm comfortable with that. I just take them at their word. They're going to work something out and get it done. If we
I
got to
agree.
bring it back, then there's going to be trouble, I guess.
We need that in the form of a motion.
Yeah, I'll move for resolution, that we approve resolution 2783-09.
No.
It's not a resolution being considered,
Yeah, it's already approved.
It's already approved.
just providing
So then
direction.
Move that.
I won't move that.
what we would need is a motion to approve the operation consistent with the original conditions of approval. A minute order motion should suffice.
So move.
Right.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. That motion carries. Thank you. Item 13, Proposition 1A Securitization Program. Do we have a staff report?
Yes.
Mayor,
He's on his way.
Mayor,
Let the record reflect that
members.
Councilmember Chilton has returned to the dais. Thank you.
Mayor and council members, in 2004, California voters passed Prop 1A in an effort to protect local revenues, including the town's property tax. Sorry. I think so. I need to speak up?
Yes.
All right. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
In 2004, California voters passed Prop 1A in an effort to protect local revenues, including the town's property tax. When a fiscal emergency is declared, the proposition can be suspended by the governor with 2/3 vote of the state legislature, as was done with the 2009-2010 state budget approval on July 28th of this year. This action allowed the state to take 8% of the property tax from the town and other cities and local districts. The state is obligated to pay back the funds by June 30, 2013, with 2% interest. California Communities, a joint powers authority sponsored by the California League of Cities and the California State Association of Counties, saw the need to offer a program to towns, cities, and counties impacted by the revenue shift, and they were successful in developing this securitization program. The program provides agencies an opportunity to sell the receivable amount owed from the state and receive the property tax revenue owed in 2 installments, January 15th and May 3rd, which is the same timing as we receive our property tax apportionment from the county. This program is offered at no cost or risk to the town. The fiscal impact on the town is estimated to be $81,186. The exact amount will be certified by our county auditor as part of this program. This revenue was not included in our budget estimates, and participation in this program is positive on the town's finances, as it certainly makes sense to take the money now rather than wait for the state to pay us later. As noted in the staff report, a required cleanup bill, SB 67, was pending in the legislature, and I'm pleased to report that SB 67 passed last week and was signed by the governor yesterday, leaving no further hurdles for this program to go forward. So the resolution presented to you tonight authorizes the town manager and myself to approve the agreement enclosed in the packet so that the town can participate in the program. And I'd also like to note that the town attorney has also reviewed the documents.
Thank you. Council, have any questions for staff? Councilmember Chilton?
Kathleen, I just want to clarify a couple of things. Most importantly is that the securitization of the bonds have ultimately nothing to do with the town of Yountville. This is not going to our balance sheet. This
That's
is not
true.
something, if there's a default, that we're responsible for.
Right,
This is the state taking on debt, essentially, on our behalf.
Right, that's
Okay.
correct. There's no risk to the town.
Okay. And the alternative is to allow the state to give us essentially an IOU, and they're going to pay us a whopping 2% interest for that privilege.
That's correct.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, I just wanted to be clear on that. Thank you.
Okay.
Any more questions? Councilmember Dutton?
Yeah. You know, as you read this thing, I mean, come on, they're setting up a whole agency just to get 8% more, and they're going to pay it. I mean, I understand what you're doing. I think we have to do it, but I mean, this is a classic in stupidity. Sorry, but that's fine.
Okay. Any more questions for staff at this time? Anyone from the public like to comment on this matter this evening? All righty. Seeing none, bring it back to council for further discussion and/or action.
If I can make one more comment.
Yes.
I think you're chuckling at the state May paper 2% to me is the entire point. Constitution of the state of California requires, really first, before anything else, that the state has to pay their bonds back. And we all know that they make choices often not to pay back local governments. So in effect, by taking this money, it guarantees that somebody's going to get paid back, because if we didn't, we would be on the hook maybe in a couple of years of the legislature changing their mind again, or making some change to Prop 1A or who knows what. So I agree with Councilmember Dutton. This whole thing is part of the problem, but this is good for local governments, and maybe it will force the state to get their house in order someday. I don't know. So I do support it.
Someday.
Any further discussion?
My only comment would be to support what's been said, and that we can't, I don't think it would be prudent for us to hope for the best in a few years, knowing that the stronger likelihood is things are going to be worse off than better off, and to get this money now when it's as secure as it's going to be, I totally support the idea.
I agree. Can I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve resolution number 2826-09.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. That motion carries. Thank you. Item 14, Transportation Advisory Committee appointments. Staff report?
Thank you, Mayor. The Town Council is recruiting for 2 positions on our local Transportation Advisory Committee. Last council meeting, we appointed incumbent member Donna Hine, and we still have 2 remaining positions. We extended the recruitment period to October 9th and received 2 additional applications, one from Jim Shoup and one from Billy Hewitt. Council has interviewed those applicants earlier this evening. The council provided me with their tally sheets, and the votes appear as Councilmember Dutton, Vice Mayor Dunbar, and Mayor Sosserman choosing Mr. Shoup as their first choice and Ms. Hewitt as the second choice, and Councilmember Chilton and Moeller choosing Ms. Hewitt as their first choice and Mr. Shoup as the second choice. The council at this point has the option to appoint both, or if they choose not to appoint both, then the clerk would re-advertise. And that concludes my report.
Thank you.
I would move that we appoint James Shoup and Billy Hewitt to the Transportation Advisory Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. That motion carries. Congratulations, and thank you for volunteering, Billy and Jim, if you're out there listening.
Besides that, you're right, 7:30 days.
What's that?
You said, they asked what time?
I said between 7:30 and 8, huh?
Or before.
Or before. He's watching on TV. Item 15, staff informational reports.
Briefly, there's a item report outlining the status of the playground equipment, and I won't go into any details unless you have any questions. And I do want to share 2 recent developments today that I think are exciting to share. One, we just received our quarterly update from the state on sales tax, and this is second quarter, which for those of you that don't necessarily follow the state's calculation, that would be the April, May, June period, so several months back. Our sales tax is 6.4% up from the previous second quarter in 2008, again showing a very unique trend in this community with regard to our sales tax, which is primarily 75% food-related and restaurants. So, one, I think it's a tremendous credit to our local restaurants and why people want to come, but it's also positive from our budget standpoint. Secondly, kind of a comment following up on your Prop 1A securitization. League of California Cities, in partnership with the California Association of County Governments and California Special Districts Association, have filed a petition and will be putting a ballot initiative forward that will close a lot of the loopholes and further redefine what is local government revenue and provide a strict separation and prevent the state from reallocation of local government revenues. So stay tuned. There'll be more information on that moving forward. But I do think it's a situation where local government is realizing, much like a lot of the private sector has, which is we need to lobby and put ballot initiatives forward rather than assume the legislature will do the job that we sent them to Sacramento to do. So I want to share you with that this city, this town, I should say, much like many other cities, has been actively involved, and I will continue to work with you all as we move forward with this initiative and how that's going to work. But I do think it's a good situation where local government collectively is working to change it so that, you all have to do the job of balancing your budget, and Sacramento needs to get that message as well.
Any other staff reports? Latest update on construction in town?
Well, I will say, we've issued press releases and walked the streets. The Midtown project is actually a few days early in terms of its progress, but it is moving forward, and you'll see continued instruction. That project is moving south, meaning it will move from the intersection of Washington and Yount, and you'll see the relocation of the intersection there that actually was mentioned earlier in some of the traffic safety discussions you had with the interviews, and you'll see work going on with storm drain, and then they'll move forward with the replacement. So it's a very active project. It should hopefully go very quickly, timely, and weather permitting. That's one of the positive things we need. Community Center, I've got some good news. The commissioning and testing of all the geothermal and the solar went well, and the air conditioning and heating is all working, and they've done a test in the community hall portion of the building. So plans are continuing to progress well on the gradual turnover of the balance of the site. And if we get some nice sunny weather like we had today, we can pour the last little bit of concrete out front, and we can bring down the fence that everybody's waiting for along Washington as soon as we can get our sidewalk poured.
Excellent. And speaking of sidewalks, during all this construction, I think it's important that we stay vigilant in keeping those sidewalks open and safe. I've seen a lot of construction debris here and there.
It's a full-time job because, unfortunately, a lot of people don't use common sense. And when there's a sign that says sidewalk closed ahead, there's a reason. And we really do need people to use some common sense, use the sidewalk, crosswalk. You may have to walk one side of the street versus the other, but bear with us. The end product will be worth it.
That's right. Good. Thank you. Any more staff reports? Council reports, meetings and comments. Flood control, it's tomorrow. Are you going to be there? Or NCTPA? Okay, good. They wanted to know. You should call and tell them. Flood control wasn't held today. It'll be next month. Upper Valley Waste Management?
No, we did not have any meeting. But I would want to make a comment, and I don't know if you've been following it. I've talked to the town manager about it, but there's a little thing working its way through the Board of Supervisors, and it's basically from the vintners wanting to reopen and increase wedding participation at wineries that they've disallowed. And I think we should really strongly take a position on this for a number of reasons. One, in talking to Supervisor Luce, and we were talking one day, and it came up about wine tasting rooms, and, well, we're getting a lot of them. And he says, well, that's where we want them to be. He says, we don't need any more, traffic out on the counties and this type of thing. And so as they have, in their approval of these things, have limited the visitors and these type of things, it has forced them in here. Well, now, obviously, when things are a little tough, they want to turn it around. And here we have a nice new center going up that's going to have weddings, and we're going to be in competition. So it's just a whole classic. Well, we only want to do it for 2 years. Forget it. It's a permanent deal after that. So I think we should really take a position on that. That things are going great. They don't want any traffic out there. They want it here. Things are tough. Well, let's open it up a little here and take away from the city. So I think we have a lot as a jurisdiction to to go for, especially on the wedding thing. I mean, obviously, we're going to do some with a golf course. We get revenue from that and these type of things. So I think we should really protect that and make sure that, they're sort of talking out of both sides of their mouth there sometimes.
If there's council concurrence, we can add that as an item for discussion and possible action at your next council meeting. And I have followed in and looking a little bit on the timing, and it does look like this is kind of rolling through and anticipating perhaps a late December, early January Board of Supervisor consideration. And I think Council Member Dutton brings up some interesting considerations, which is what we're really talking about is a major change in the, and Bob's probably the expert on this, but it would be the winery definition ordinance, or WDO, which sounds like a weapon of mass destruction. But the reality is the communities with the adoption of the egg preserve have established certain economic models, and business decisions, our land use decisions, things that we said, all right, we'll allow for this type of development and use, and that includes the hotels, and that includes some of these other things, affordable housing, et cetera, that all support the business. Now you're looking at a major change in that approach. And I do think that may be something that's appropriate for the council to have a discussion and look at, because it's not as simple to change that model and say, okay, you can go out and do some of these things and not have consideration for traffic, not have consideration for employment, and a lot of those things that the local communities have dealt with when you've done your local land use. So, I mean, there's always two sides to the story and, interest, but I do think it is probably a reasonable discussion, and there might be some folks that would like to share their thoughts on that with the council. So if that's your concurrence, we'll put that on as a kind of a topic for discussion at your next. I'm seeing. So is there general concurrence?
Yeah, I wouldn't.
I agree.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing it come up. I mean, after all, we did have the issue before us last council meeting regarding encroachment into the ag preserve and subdividing that land. And, I mean, we start whittling away at those conditions, and before you know it, we've lost it. So I think it's incumbent upon this council and all elected officials that supported ag preserve to take a stance.
I think that's a reasonable statement, because some could argue that this is in fact an encroachment into the ag preserve. So with that, I do realize we have a council member absent at the next meeting, though. Should I try to schedule this for the 11/17 so that all council can participate?
I think my colleagues can handle it.
All right, then 11/3 it will be.
Okay.
Whatever works. Any more council reports or comments? Vice Mayor?
I do have a couple meetings to briefly report on. One, several members of this council and staff attended the Napa County League of Governments quarterly meeting up at the Culinary Institute a few weeks ago, and heard a somewhat daunting report on the H1N1 influenza epidemic, and just some common sense steps that everyone should take to help try to minimize that impact. And also we heard an update from Chuck Daldorf on the state budget and legislative situation there, so I won't even bother trying to talk about that. The other meeting that I attended, along with there was a very impressive showing from other elected officials throughout the valley, including our, Bill Dodd, Supervisor Dodd was there, Mayor Sossaman was there, and some other mayors from the valley at the Great Wine Capitals Best of Wine Tourism event that was hosted up at Domaine Chandon. And the reason, one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up is it's a very obvious reminder, to me it was anyway, how international we truly are here, not just in the Napa Valley, but in Yountville, hosted by Domaine Chandon, a previous recipient of one of the Best of Wine Tourism Awards themselves, representatives from the Napa Valley Vintners, the Napa Chamber, and Clay Gregory, the new leader of the Destination Council were there and spoke. So I just want to acknowledge that some of our local wineries, Valley Accommodations, were recognized, and they then had the daunting task of going to Bordeaux, France, for the international competition. So wanted to give good luck to all of our Napa Valley winners and representatives that went there, or will be going there at the end of this month. Just a couple other things I wanted to mention, some concerns that have been brought forward to me that we hopefully will deal with in the near future. One, I'd like to just remind staff and council that I'd like to review the parking ordinance that we have in place. I've seen and had a resident bring up another issue just recently about parking in front of a business. So I think, as we are dealing with the Transportation Advisory Committee tonight, maybe the council can give some specific guidance to that committee on some of the outstanding issues related to parking that we could have them discuss and potentially bring back to us and have a bit of a collaborative effort there. The other issue I had brought up by a resident representing some of the parents at Yountville Elementary School and what they hear and what is rumor about what the school district may or may not be doing with school closures. And it's hard to figure out what's accurate and what's grapevine speculation about Yountville Elementary in particular and just the other schools in the area. So that would be something else that I hope that we could look into since it is a local concern.
Councilmember Chilton, another comment?
If I can address the issue that the vice mayor just brought up, but one issue first. The council subcommittee, I'm not sure if this is specifically a community center issue. The bulb outs that we are going to have on Mulberry Street, is that part of the project or is that coming afterwards?
That is a secondary project that is separately funded out of your traffic calming and went through TAC, and that's a secondary project, so that will be coming afterwards.
Okay, great.
We're finishing design work on that.
I bring that up, I think because it's such a busy season, my visual observations and then some incidents that have been in the neighborhood in Toyon Terrace recently, the number of people who are kind of cycling through that neighborhood has been really high. And there was an incident, it was even in daylight, it was in the evening, where a car came from Holly Street, cut the corner on Larkspur, and then came across and actually rear-ended one of the cars that was parked. They didn't call the sheriff's department. I don't know why. Rear-ended a car and actually hit two other cars. And they basically said I was going too fast. I didn't know where I was. They got out and everything was fine. But many times during the day, at that time of the day, there are kids out there. So I do think when that comes up, the idea of how do we, if it's a sign that's no access to Silverado Trail. I know we've talked about that, but when we get to that, I would like to heighten the thought about that.
Very appropriate. We can work on that, but it's the Mulberry bulb out will be funded. That's one of the last CIP projects that will come forward, and it is funded in this year's CIP program.
On the other note, I share the Vice Mayor's concerns about what really are highly inconsistent messages or very vague messages that come through the press and through other channels on what is happening at the Napa Valley Unified School District. And I think it has the biggest impact on our local elementary school, which my daughter goes to, but I think is a really important piece of the fabric of this town as a residential town, not just a tourist town. The town manager, because of my interest in that, personal interest, I have attended a couple of meetings with some folks at the school district to try to get better educated and be a little more in the know on what's happening with the budget situation. And there are some things, and I have no doubt of the political support that we can get in this town for that school. So that's something that I definitely am following, and Steve has helped facilitate. But I do think that the time will be coming pretty soon that we should not take for granted, the status of that school. I think the status of Yountville School is good, but the district could be facing some very serious choices, and we should not take that for granted. So I am personally trying to keep up with that as much as I can.
Let me give a little clarification. I had the opportunity to speak with Superintendent John Glazer over the late weekend, and he kind of advised me of some of the discussions. And what we do want to stress first is Yountville Elementary is not on the chopping block for this phase. It is under a list for Phase 2, and what that may fully entail and when that Phase 2 may occur are very much in play and at question. And certainly, Superintendent Glazer is very aware of the role that this school plays, but I have to say we also need to remind ourselves that every neighborhood school, whether it's in the city of Napa, Chappelle, Woodin Valley, they all have similar emotion and sentiments. But I do think our situation is somewhat unique in the sense that we are we are in an incorporated community and not a neighborhood. So, but I think Superintendent Glazer is very aware of that and believes strongly in this school. And I think what they're really looking at is how do they utilize their resources given what the state's doing to them, and how do they gain control of their cost. And they're having to look at that. And there are a number of other options, such as co-administration and some different things that he said they could be looking at, and it may mean shared principal administrative support between this school and Salvador, or some different things, and also looking at how they do some of the district and tightening up some of their interdistrict transfers. So there's a whole lot of things in play. One of the things that I think most people need to realize right now is the school district has a fairly high enrollment. So it's not a site sitting here with a lot of empty rooms. So that's one of the positive benefits. And if the site continues to stay full, then that becomes more challenging to the district, because relocating and busing and doing a lot of those things have additional costs. So unfortunately, I think the school district's got a year or two of challenging discussions that we certainly need to monitor and be involved in, and continue to have a rapport with the school district. And I'm sure that between the elected officials, yourself, the meetings, and the rapport we've established with the superintendent, that we'll continue to get the information and share it with you. But it will be a highly emotional issue.
And if I can follow up on that, and I want to give credit to council and the citizens of Yountville. This town does support the school in a variety of ways that are unique, and one is that the town provides the after-school program, and American Canyon is a great example. Also in the Napa Valley Unified School District, there's nothing comparable at their schools, and I know a lot of working parents down there. They're, what do we do? My kids now gets out at noon on Wednesdays, and I've got to find care, and it's very expensive. We run what's practically a break-even program, which is great, but that kind of support I think is really, really key. And you bring up the issue. Woodin Valley Elementary, which I do think is important to that community, has 55 total students at the elementary school. And right now the class size is it's supposed to be 24 students per class, and their kindergarten has 12. Yountville is generally in the situation of everybody in North Napa. They're more than happy to drive their kids up here. People stand out in line the first day of open enrollment and try to get into this school. So if nothing else, when that comes around, to make sure that demand stays intact, I think is very, very high. And in many cases, most parents in North Napa think that Yountville School is not accessible to them because it's impossible to get into. So I think we could prove that not to be the case if necessary. So I think there's a lot of good things going for us. We just should never take it for granted.
Councilmember Dutton?
Yeah, Mayor, I apologize. I should have mentioned one other thing. I did attend the Allied Council meeting this past Wednesday up at the Veterans Home, and a couple of things came up, very interesting. First of all, you're aware that they have built storage units there for primarily, I think, some of the local residents, but also I think it's really commercial storage. And they're sold out immediately. So apparently they're going to start a phase 2. They're going to start some more up there, so it's highly successful. And the reason I mentioned that, that's just one thing you see. We're sort of a little different enterprise getting started there. It's certainly good for the home as far as revenue. The other thing Marcella talked about was the Member Services Center, which is akin to what we're doing now with our community center. And I think if you go by it, the reason you don't really see anything is nothing's changed from the outside. It still looks blue. Well, they're starting to move furniture in there. And, I mean, yeah, they're a lot closer to that than I think people realized. And she was just ecstatic. I mean, they have it's a green building type situation there. And I think it'll be interesting to see it because for those of you, you know, there was a lot to do up there for locals that they really didn't take advantage of. I think you're even going to see more of what they're talking about. I mean, she just said, hey, she couldn't believe it. She said, you know what I mean? And, you know, she gets a little fired up, but she was really fired up on this one. So I think that when that gets done, and it's a lot closer. She wouldn't give a date, but when they start talking about moving furniture in and this type of thing, you know that it's not that far away. So I think it'd be something to look forward to, and also see how some of those facilities there, services can integrate with a lot of the things that the people in the town here are looking to do. So stay tuned.
Good, thank you. Any more reports, comments? Where was I? Item 17, future agenda items. Looks like Yountville Inn Master Development Plan is going to come back on October 6th, continued from October 6th on to November 3rd. Pacific Blues Design Review. Looking forward to that project getting underway. Bartisono Residence Design Review and Town Council Protocols Review and Update. Okay.
Mayor, I think we need to figure out a mechanism too. It's time for our illustrious leader Steve Rogers' annual review too. So it seems kind of awkward for him to put that on the agenda, but we need to figure out a way to make sure we don't miss out on that important deadline.
We have, I mean, that's something I'm well aware of, and I don't have any issues with us putting it on. I have been trying to be sensitive to the upcoming time that you're going to be needing on the attorney selection. So as long as you're all comfortable, I'm trying to balance that because you are going to need a couple meetings, but and I need to also work on a couple different formats so you have a draft evaluation format that you all can review. So we have done some work on that to get started. But if you'd like, you know, we have no qualms about getting that put back on the agenda for you.
Okay. Item 18, closed session.